And this time we're moving on to what, again, in terms of your personal household survival income that you need and the expenditure is a bit of a nice to have. I find it quite useful, but again, it's not necessarily needed. And what this is going to focus on is column G, and I've called it a percentage of net. So what we've got each individual heading there in terms of when certain, or sorry, a list of different costs or expenditure, mortgage or rent, etc., down to life insurance. What I find useful is working out what percentage of the net income that represents, just as a guide to see what are the highest costs, which, of course, a common sense thing, you'd expect certain things to be high, but what is the percentage? I don't do it against gross income because gross income is not what comes into your bank account, it's net income. So I'm going to use a bit of a formula here. You can use a calculator if you want to. So I'm just going to start with equals, click on the actual outgoing. I do it on the net to see how much is percentage is an ongoing basis. Divided by, now it's the total net, but I'm going to have to put a dollar before the H, and a dollar before the 7. The reason being is we need to fix that particular H7 each time when we copy and paste it, so it doesn't move times 100 to see what the percentage is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy that down, all the way down, all the way down, and to see, obviously, so without the additional expenditure, that represents nearly 90% of all your net income. The big ones are going to be food and toiletries and rent, which you'd probably expect. But again, you can have a look because this phrase is once you start going above, so for example, your gas and electric, where is it there? Once you start going over 10%, people start talking about things like fuel poverty and stuff like that. So yeah, it just gives an eye. I'm also going to then copy and paste it into the additional and also total. So and also that what that shows at 95% is there's a 5% of net income available as what I suppose you call would you call it disposable income, in terms of that's the gap. So if all your, if your expenditure increases by 5%, especially some of the bigger bills, you start sort of having to look at individual items and whether you want those things to go out. So I just find that really useful in terms of the sort of a couple of extra figures in here for some reason. So let's get rid of that. In terms of your percentage of your expenditure, and I've got it here, percentage of net income. You can also things like do your debt to percentage of gross income, because I believe that's what lenders potentially use in terms of some of their lending decisions. But they use often, I think they use the gross income figure rather than net income figure. I'm not necessarily going to show you that now. Might get a chance to show it in the last one. And I think the final thing that I didn't get a chance to finish off in the last video was the payments that are subject to reviews, annual or inflation costs. So that certainly helps in terms of that percentage figure. So council tax is one. It's bold and italic. Your what else is definitely so? Your broadband, I mean, it might be fixed for 24 months. I mean, the thing is, you could go through most of these now. Gas and electric might be fixed. So yeah, you just sort of going through and thinking, well, which ones of those are going to change? That's again a nice thing to have. And I think also I mentioned in the last video about putting bank balances in there. So yeah, that's now really a fully complete personal survival budget. The only additional thing you might want to kind of sort of put in there is things like if you want to keep an eye on your gas and electric. So you may get monthly billing. Now electric is a bit more straightforward. Gas is it's very the way they calculate it is can be quite complicated. So what I might do is just do another video for that. Particularly if you've got issues with your meter, or there's a bit of a gap between your bills, it's sometimes a really good idea. Ignore these dates here, kind of. These are dates previously when I've actually done the reading or I've received the bill, etc. So you kind of have an opening read, a date when you do the read. So let's just change that to sort of 2025. Uh, you know, let's change that to 2026 at the very end. Um, and then, you can break it down into, you might find actually that the price, the units change. So you might go, oh, okay, well, in December or in January, I think it is, isn't it? The sort of the price cap might, or you might change the deal. So you're going to have to do different lots of readings, but I say I will do a different video on that in terms of looking at that, and it breaks it down quite comprehensively. And like I said, you might want to just stop at a certain point in terms of how you use this and what information you put in there. I just hope that it's really useful and helps you get through the next 12 months, because as we know, like I said, it's a very, very difficult circumstances in terms of that. So I think what I'm going to actually do now, I'm just going to stop this video and just do a video of how you actually use it on an ongoing basis, and then, as I say, some real very, very additional things like monitoring your gas and electric. Also, I think things like let's say how much interest you're paying on different things, loans, mortgages, credit cards, just to keep an eye, because often what you do in terms of a budget like this is you look at actual your payment that you're making, which uh, would normally include the interest, but actually, how much interest are you paying? So you can delve a little bit deeper, but I appreciate how people got time for that. Is it a bit too much? And does it make it a bit too much complex? When really what you need is, what's your outgoings at a very sort of survival level? What's your additional outgoings for nice to do things? And again, remember that could be subjective there in terms of what you need to do. What's your income, net income, and then what is the difference between the two? How much wriggle room have you got after all your costs? There are other more basic templates around which are absolutely fine, but I just think, I just wanted to do this to try to get people to switched on, because I have a partially I work in linked to finance and things. So yeah, I think it's just something I wanted to um, you know share with people to help them understand a bit more. And thank you very much for listening to all the videos. But as I said, I'll add a couple more on some of these extras as well.